So the assertion and negation are the two essential pedals or tools or steps in the spiritual path. So unless until we negate the lower, we cannot assert the higher. So from the standpoint of the Brahman, considering these set of verses are talking about the nature of Brahman. So Brahman being kept at the very highest pedestal, the very highest objective to attain. There is perhaps, he says, there's nothing greater than this, as we learned in a few verses earlier. So if that be so, and if you are inspired to attain the highest, you will have to negate everything lower. So the lower has to be negated to get to the higher. Now, we understood that the lower includes the very knowledge itself, the very knowledge that we are associating is considered lower because this knowledge also is a part of the terrestrial realm. The terrestrial has to die to give way. In fact, the terrestrial has to give way to get to the transcendental, just like the dream has to end to give way to the waking experience. As long as you're confined to the dream experiences, you will not have the experience of the waker. So the lower has to be negated to get to the higher. In fact, in the Mundaka Upanishad, one day we will study that text. The Mundaka Upanishad, there he actually spells it out and he says, this knowledge is lower. So an Upanishadic guru himself telling the students that this knowledge is lower. And when the guru tells the student that this knowledge, which is of the highest order, there are many practices in the spiritual ladder. You have the various ritualistic practices, you have the various karma kandas, you'll have the various Puranas, you have various angas of religion, Now, amongst all of them, Vedantic wisdom, the Sara, the essence of these scriptures are the highest. And when the Guru says this highest of the knowledge, which is the essentials amongst the religion, he says this essential of the religion itself is lower, which only drives home a very strong point to the seeker that he has to learn to develop a detachment even to this knowledge. You can't hold on to it because this by itself, if you hold on to, will not give you the transcendental experience. So you got to negate the unreal to experience the real. And the Shastras very clear say, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. If Brahman is the reality and the world is illusion, so you will have to negate in everything that comes within the purview of the terrestrial world, everything which comes within the experience of the terrestrial world has to be negated. Now this is the absolute standpoint. Now, coming to applicability, we can't simply negate. Negation doesn't mean abandonment of duties. It is not an external abandonment we are talking about. Neti, negation, is not abandoning your duties and responsibilities. Abandoning, neti, refers to your mental bondage to them. So when you talk of negating the lower, we are talking about getting rid of your mental slavery to the objects and beings of the world. It is the slavery that has to go. It's not that you abandon your duties and responsibilities. So just like you use a thorn to remove a thorn, you got to use a higher thought to get rid of the lower thought. You got to pick up a higher attachment to get rid of the lower attachment. So it is only the mental slavery, the mental bondage, the mind's worshipping of these worldly objects and beings has to go. That is what neti means. So you can't abandon your duties and responsibilities in an attempt to get to the self. So again, even this neti has been misunderstood. So when they say neti, I can't say neti physically and mentally start worshipping the world. Oh, the Shastra says neti. No, I'll have nothing to do with anything. Like today, we had a few core, the innermost core. No, we have certain terminologies, you know. So I'm only using the terms we use in the Shastras. We say Atman is the innermost core of the self, you know. And the innermost core of the wisdom foundation was there, you know. And after we had a certain discussion, there was an invitation to have Golgappa. You know what Golgappa is? UK. Looks like you don't know what Golgappa is. You know what Golgappa is? Nama, don't tell me you're Googling Golgappa. I know, most likely you're Googling Golgappa. Nama, unmute. You're not able to unmute. We can't hear you, Ma. We can't hear you actually. You're not unmuted yet. Is there some technical issue we are having? Try and unmute anybody else, Badriji or Vijayaraghavanji or Srinath.
I've been unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got unmuted. It's all right.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
It works. It works. Okay. Okay. So gentlemen, please mute yourself because I need to connect with Ushama. Yes, Ushama.
Can you hear me, Guruji?
Loud and clear, Ma. Yes.
Okay. It must be Pani Puri, Guruji, obviously.
Must be Pani Puri. It is Pani Puri.
Okay.
But then they told me it is Golgappa and they tried to make it say it is heavenly, Guruji. You would not have had anything as good as that. Now, when Golgappa is offered to you, then I try to practice this quality neti there. How do you practice neti there, Ma?
I mean, just say I will not
Vedanta
come.
says you must say, why should you say not come?
I mean,
okay. No, let's say I go with that approach, and I will say no. Shastra say neti. You know, you renounce the lower to attain the higher. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. What are you talking? You're offering me Golgappa and Pani Puri as if it's heaven on earth. No. I will have nothing to do with it. And they respected my word and they left. I'm only dramatizing it, but we decided not to have. But let's say after they left, what a chance I've missed for having heavenly Golgappa. If I had said no to it, physically abandoning, considering there is a deep desire or a vasana to have Golgappa, and abandoning externally the action, but mentally holding on to the value for it, would I attain the objective of getting rid of vasanas?
No, definitely not, Guruji.
So you will not be able to uproot the deep-rooted vasanas by abandoning action.
Yes.
So neti is not to be understood as abandoning duties and responsibilities or abandoning action. This is what I said. You got to remove a thorn with a thorn. You got to remove a vasana with a vasana. So you got to entertain a higher vasana, and until you get established in the higher vasana, you may have to play by the rules of the lower vasanas. Remember this. You're not yet established in the higher thoughts. So you'll have to respect that these thoughts have been holding on to you. So you will have to give them the necessary time until they lose a grip over you. You may not understand, or in fact, you may understand rather that this is futile, but still the grip of the vasanas are there. So from an absolute point of view, you can say Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya and say nay to it everything. But when it comes to the application of it, you may have to, no, going with the example, let's say there's an invitation and it is fairly reasonable to say, okay, go and accept the invitation to go and have a meal or be invited somewhere. You say, okay, and you go there and you accept whatever is offered, you enjoy it, you may have a liking for it, but you go through it in such a austere way, that there is no, remember the three mistakes, Rajima, we say attachment, but the expression of attachment is in threefold ways. Your attachment expresses at the mental level in threefold ways. Perhaps I'm explaining it in a different way, but it's a concept which you have understood before. The attachment to the objects and beings expresses in threefold ways. Can you recall what is the threefold ways that your mind develops or expresses, not develops rather? What is a threefold way that your mind expresses an attachment to objects and beings of the world? Threefold. Vasantama, the threefold way, ma.
Hari Om Guruji.
Hari Om, ma.
I don't know. Is it craving, indulging, and lingering?
Perfect. Very good. There is this craving, mind craves for it, mind indulges in it, and mind lingers after the experience. This is violation of detachment or austerity. This is expression of attachment. Ilya?
Guruji, what is it? Violation of?
Leading a life of austerity. Austerity means what?
To be mentally detached.
Is that what a large implication or the complete implication of austerity is?
Not complete.
Okay, hold on, Vasantama. Yes, Harishji, how would you define austerity? You have a definition? You have an idea?
Not really. I can only try, Guruji, but possibly only that which is absolutely necessary.
Correct. Austerity is
Practice minimalist.
something very minimalistic. All right, let's hear how further could we. Yes, Setuji, any idea? Austerity. Setuji, any idea, Setuji?
Essentials.
Yeah, that's what A few of them have commented essentials.
Guruji, is it tapas?
Tapas. Tapa is austerity, then, eh? Is it? I don't know. I'm a little lost today. You got to help me. Gayatri Ma.
Fasting is one of those.
Yes, Gayatri Ma.
Some sort of a
Can't hear.
physically
Sorry?
austerity is physically withdrawal and again mentally also trying to withdraw from the desire. That means you are maintaining an austerity.
So is it right to say austerity is tapas?
It may be very higher level.
Higher level. Okay.
For small things, we say I'm austerity of speech or the thing means you withdraw from the what is required essentially and try to mentally also abstain from it.
Yeah. So you're right. You're right. So Vasantama, you can very rightly say tapaha is austerity, you know. So which is tapas has two elements. Didn't we say tapas has conservation of energy and redirection of energy? So conservation of energy happens from leading a life of withdrawal from the world. You know? So now bringing the concept of austerity to going back to the example of an invitation to go for a meal, you're invited, you go out to contact the world, but the mental austerity you're practicing is there is no lingering, craving, indulging. So when you bring in that, this is in fact detachment. Please, this is practicing neti. This is what you are actually doing to the existing attachments and vasanas you have. You do not want to feed them. You want to cut the supply. So when the desires and attachments within are deprived of the feed and you redirect that thoughts to the higher, the lower is being negated, the higher is being asserted. So, and yet you are going through the course of action. At the same time, the fuel of the vasanas are getting burnt. At the same time, since you're able to invest your time in the higher, you're developing an attachment to the higher. So neti is not simply sitting and saying, no, 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 I will have nothing to do with it. You will be a hypocrite if you do that. If you physically say neti to the world and mentally start indulging, you will be a hypocrite. Therefore, the best solution of dealing with the desires is through, first is through knowledge. If you can handle it with knowledge, handle it. If you can't handle it with knowledge, you have to go through experience. What do? Go through the experience, but mentally don't get into the threefold expression of attachment, which is, again, I'm saying, this is what is happening all the time. Wherever you're attached to, your mind either craves, either lingers, or indulges. This is what is the mental disease. So you've got to actually checkmate these three mental avenues of mental indulgences, the mental weaknesses, which is attachment. So if this is addressed, I tell you, you are actually leading a spiritual life. This is spirituality at its best. It's not. So you are actually leading a spiritual life being in the marketplace. I have got a vasana for it. It is because of my past karma, I have got a vasana for it. Rajima, can we not say that? I have lived a certain life in the past, maybe purva karma, purva janma also. I am born with certain vasanas. Now I've decided I want to burn with it, burn them off and get rid of them. So spirituality is determined by the path you take to deal with the vasanas. It is not what you're left with. It's not what you have. What I have is the life of materiality I have led. But the life I want to lead further is the life of spirituality. Jai Shri Ma, I have led a certain life. I'm not just being personal when I say this. I'm only saying one could have led a life of certain indulgence, a life where you have accumulated vasanas. So if I take a stock of my life today, I realize I've got a lot of vasanas and desires. Now I decide I want to lead this life of spirituality. Now, how do I deal with it? What is it that's going to determine, am I a spiritual person or a material person? It is not the quotient of my vasanas that determine whether I'm a spiritual or material, isn't it? It is the path I take. So the path I should take ahead is, I will not indulge, linger, and crave. I will embark on shifting my attention to the higher, but I can only do that when I negate the lower. So how do last week I remember saying, if you recall, you got to start practicing neti from the areas of your attachment, isn't it? Wherever your areas of attachment, you got to practice neti there. How do you practice neti? Not by saying, no, I've got nothing to do with it. We can't do that, isn't it?
Yes, yes. We have to find out where, how we can go ahead without any vasanas, using our knowledge.
Yes, you can use your knowledge and wisdom to disconnect with the world, disconnect your mind with what draws you to the world. But
And
certain things you can't.
We have to
Sorry,
find
Ma?
out what are our drawbacks, and we should realize
Yes.
where we are lagging.
Yes, yes, yes.
Like that, we have
So,
to go ahead.
absolutely, you got to use your areas of your inabilities, weaknesses, and start addressing it.
Yes.
Right. So you're following?
Yes. Yes, Guruji.
Very good. Yes, wonderful, wonderful. So so I'm only trying to explain and expand on the word neti. Vijay Raghavanji. So the applicability of the word neti is being clarified. Otherwise, we may not understand the context of it.
Guruji, I have a doubt. When
Yes,
does
sir.
a particular positive or regular habit starts becoming an obsession? I mean, you were mentioning a couple of times about, I want to have order.
Yes.
Now, by itself, I think it's a virtue. But at what point of time that becomes an attachment and an obsession? Is it when we don't think about it and do it as second nature? And also we don't expect it from others?
Can you explain those two terms you used?
I mean, about looking for order in everything, keeping everything. I mean, let's take a very simple example of keeping everything clean. Now, usual tendency is when we do it, we expect others to do it too. And, we get upset if it is not, met with from others. Now, if I stop worrying about that and continue to do what I do, and without really glorifying it in my mind or thinking it's a big thing, just do it. And don't stop doing it. Does that become a bit sattvic?
See, since you bring in the element of sattva in describing a quality, as long as there is no element of anxiety or agitation or restlessness, then it becomes sattva. It could be any quality. So it could be a positive quality of cleanliness or discipline or things to be in order or being punctual. For example, you You could be a man of discipline and you would want to be punctual, where you value your time and others' time. And yet others may not be mindful. But does their absence of discipline, does it annoy you? If that disturbs you and that puts you off balance, that means it is an obsessive compulsive disorder. No, I see my wife is laughing at me because I have got a name in the family, extended family. They all call me OCD. So you can, so you get what I'm saying, you know. So, but there is a very thin line between appreciating a value vis-a-vis the sense of proportion to that value. You understand? The sense of value, sense of proportion. In the other day we used in the terms in the workshop. So a sense of value is something which you have appreciated. But if you are not able to find an applicability of it, if that value loses a charm because you're not able to apply with a lack of proportion, then there's no intellect applied there, you know.
And also, Guruji, I mean, is, invariably we tend to attach, develop some ego because of that, you know. If you're, you know, and that also sort of, I think, in a loose sense, spoils it. I mean, if you like doing it, just do it and don't attach a big value to it, even if it is good.
No, you got to give it the utmost value. We are here, we're trying to get over our weaknesses and possible slip into tamas, but it should not become, it not become a Frankenstein, you know. It should not start dictating you, because very easy we develop an attachment to certain things. So you have appreciated discipline, you have developed attachment to discipline.
What I mean, Guruji, is that it shouldn't contribute to increasing our ego. That's
which
what
is
I mean.
again an expression of attachment. Ego also is an expression of your own attachment. Isn't ego? Again, this is negative element. In fact, it's all these elements are invariably there in any quality, because it's not 100% sattva there, isn't it? So there is that element of rajas and tamas. Okay.
Yes, Guruji. Thanks.
Right. So Jam is asking, so are we to put up with indiscipline? The moment you have to put up with something, then there's a frustration. You respect others' nature and let that nature be what they are. Why do you have to put up with it? The moment you say put up, it kind of you're sort of bearing. You're not really accepting everybody what they are. So the concept of neti, how it plays a role with your existing vasanas. What you are negating ultimately is the deep root vasanas. So you got to figure out how to deal with the vasanas. It's not because you have to respect them, because the vasanas take you to a particular environment. So so neti is actually, how do you conduct yourself in the environment or the vasanas that lead you into a particular field? I repeat, neti is practicing how you lead yourself, how do you deal yourself in the field which you're led to by your own nature. How do you operate? How do you function? How do you operate? How do you function in the field which you're led into by your own nature, which is vasanas? So it is the mode of conduct that determines whether attachment and detachment. I hope you're all getting what I'm saying. It's the mode of conduct, how you operate in the field, that determines whether you are spiritual or material. It is not because I have a vasana of what doesn't make me material. If I have a vasana for business and I'm I am born as a businessman. Is it a crime? Have I committed any crime for that? So no, that doesn't mean can I not become a spiritual person? Indeed, I can. Reddy Garu. So how you conduct yourself in that field?
Pranam Guruji.
Pranam, sir.
Can we also consider the neti is like we're talking about negating vasanas. Also, can we say the concept we always apply the let go? Let go is the one most of the time say that let's not too much go into the same challenges. Three steps of carving, indulging, and lingering on the issue. Let go. Keep moving further forward.
Sir, if you say let go, is it tyaga? Is it renunciation?
Need not be, Guruji. I'm talking in with respect to any, like I'll just give an example. Like you have been very, let me go back, if I have time permits, just a minute of example. I'll take it. A couple of years back, I was very fond of going for one of the branded luxurious car. So I was gone through this step 1, step 2, step 3. I really dreaming for the car and carving for that and dreaming about indulging about that, lingering thoughts, everything was there. On fine day, I said, let me go to the showroom, and I have been to go into the showroom there. Having been gone there, there is a serious conflict started coming in the mind, saying that all these emotions which are getting attaching to me on the color, the interior, the features, brand, X, Y, Z, all are one aspect of pulling me towards that to take a decision. One aspect of, is it really value for money? Is it really worth? Is it really to make sense to get into the thing? Or not, after half an hour of exploration, fortunately in that luxurious car showroom, there was a bicycle also there for say. I switched all my mode from a car to a cycle. That fellow got really confused. What happened to this gentleman? He came for a car or come for a bicycle there. Of course, even I could not buy that because even the bicycle also costly equal to a small car value. So I just walked off. So why I'm trying to bring in this is the conflict of negating means there is a continuous challenge between the emotions what we go through, the intellectual thinking which is coming in there. Then there is real churning takes place. Maybe sometimes emotions may win, sometimes you may win the intellect. Like in a case study of the UK getting detached from the Europe, when you look at that, there was a huge articles coming across. Is it economy makes sense or is it emotions make sense? They want to be on their own. They want to be live on their own. So I said, let's detach from Europe and live on their own. That is the emotional perspective of getting detached. But economically, they are really, really challenging by detaching from the European Union. So this negating is a point of conflict in every moment when we're talking about let go. These two things keep coming there. I think we need to go through the churning with a more calm and composure manner to get on to the next mode. I think that could be my understanding and a way forward for how you negate any of the challenges which come across.
Yes, in fact, you are explaining the first option, which I did not expand. First option was, as I've said, whenever a vasana comes to the forefront, we said a vasana can either be, we have dealt it in the past, some context. So vasana can either be dealt with knowledge, with intellect, which is wisdom, or with experience. When it can't be handled or subdued or controlled with intellect, you say, okay, I'm not able to control it. I'm not able to postpone it. I'm not able to push it aside. I'm not able to carry on with my activities. Then if there is no way I can move on further with my life, I have to satisfy the mind because the vasana is too strong and beyond my capacity. What do we do?
Yes.
As long as it is licentious, as long as it is legitimate, you say, never mind. Okay, you want it, you go and satisfy the mind what it craves for. But having entered the field because you have a vasana for, you practice austerity there. You don't crave, you don't indulge, you don't linger. Because you have tried your best to deal with it. In spite of that, the mind is just bugging you and nagging you, irritating you, insulting you, wanting it. What do you do, sir? It is like a pain in the head. It is constantly hurting you. I can't live a hypocritical life, can I?
Yes.
I can't get rid of it. I can't shrug it and get rid of it, nor would I want to indulge in and be sensual or materialistic. So how would I do? I understand I've got with it. I've got to deal with it. Be very realistic.
Yes.
And I want to get rid of it. So with that understanding, you very slowly, carefully get into the experience with the only objective of experiencing it, because you need that experience, but you just intellectual. So even to ensure that you don't crave, indulge or linger, you got to engage your intellect, please.
Yes.
When your intellect is optimally functional, you will ensure you use experience to burn off the vasana. So that also is neti. Remember this. So neti is to say with intellect, no, I have nothing to do with it. Or you go through the experience and say, I want to get rid of the vasana. So that is what I've explained, the second aspect of it. But the first aspect of it, which you explain, where there's a challenge with the emotion and intellect, and you analyze it and reason prevails than emotion overpowering you.
Yes. Yes, Guruji. Got it.
Isn't it?
Yes.
All right.
It's clear, Guruji.
Perfect. 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 It is, in fact, we have discussed this concept in the 3rd chapter, if you recall. But it's something very, very beautiful. How you use the experience to get rid of the vasana, which is actually implementing niti. So end of it, what you achieve is the vasana is getting burnt away. The opposite of that is the vasana gets fed. Ramji, how does a vasana get strengthened? How is a vasana fed?
Namaste, Guruji.
Namaskar.
Yeah, vasana gets fed if you keep continuously indulging and feeding it. So it grows in its size. It will become more and more demanding. Yes.
Okay. So by not doing that, are you not doing neti?
So that is abstinence, what we talked about. That you could abstain from it. Yeah. So that is one method. But like you have just explained, that you indulge in it, but with no mental attachment, and then
you experience.
Your...
I'm sorry to interrupt here. You experience it physically, but you don't participate mentally.
And then burn the vasanas through that. Correct. So both the methods are there.
Both the methods have to be adopted.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So how is it different from renunciation?
What renunciation?
So when we had talked about renunciation, means renunciate the non-essentials and go for the higher things, right? That's what we called as renunciation. So is that just abstinence that we talked about through renunciation, or is there a difference between these things?
In fact, in my clarification to Srinivas Reddy Garu, I would have actually said the word renunciation, because sattvic renunciation, if you go by the definition of sattvic renunciation is performing the action. If you remember carefully, Gayatri Ma, can you get hold of that from the workshop? Can you get hold of that, the 3 definition of sattvic, rajasic, tamasic renunciation?
Yes, Guruji. I'll do that.
Please, ma. Thank you. So she will just put up for everybody's benefit. But if before she actually shares it, sattvic renunciation is performance of action. So neti is not abandoning karma, is not abandoning action. But what you're abandoning is you're abandoning the non-essentials of action. One of them, the verse mentions, is the fruits of your action. So austerity, while you're practicing action, is actually getting into the glory or grandeur of action, which is practicing renunciation in action. And what would that do? Renunciation in action, get rid of my lower attachments. It gets rid of the non-essentials, yet it catapults me to the higher, isn't it?
Correct.
So renunciation is not giving up the lower, renunciation is actually picking up the higher. Did we say that?
Correct.
So it all fits in very beautifully if you look at it, you know. There we looked at it purely we came from an action perspective there. Here we are coming from trying to uproot the vasana, and uprooting the vasana also comes back to the same underlying principle, where you don't feed the mind. So you snap the mental activity, but perform the action. But they are talking at from the highest level. We are trying to bring an applicable nature to it at our level. Very good, Harishji. So just for the benefit of others, please take a snapshot of it. Can you just click the book, just so that at the bottom?
Yeah, you put it on slideshow mode.
Not slideshow. Next one is slideshow.
Sorry.
Next, not that. Next to it.
Next.
Click that.
Next.
Yes. That's it. Just click this. Did you click it?
Book mode.
The book mode, yeah. Okay. Never mind. Okay.
Next one.
You can. Yeah. Please try next one as well.
It is full screen. You wanted full screen or you wanted something?
Yeah, no, full screen so people can.
So next to that is full screen.
Yeah, Harishji, can you click the next one, please?
Click on the next one.
Yeah. Yes, perfect. So the three types of renunciation, if you read tamasic and rajasic renunciation, there is actually abandonment of your duty, which is the cause of delusion, out of delusion or ignorance. Rajasic renunciation is also relinquishing action. So in both these cases, there is no growth because action is relinquished. Inaction is death, Ilya Ramji.
Yeah, that's
so. But interestingly, sattvic renunciation is says performance of obligatory duty while relinquishing attachment and fruit. And this is the pinnacle of Vedanta. This is actually the essence of Vedanta. This is actually leading a highly spiritual life. You are dynamic, physically you are active, but mentally you are renouncing. And the mental renunciation can happen only when the intellect participates. It's an outstanding philosophy. So anybody out in the marketplace can actually live the highest principles of Vedanta by just getting rid of his attachment. And what is getting rid of attachment? And interestingly, Ramji, I did not say attachment expresses in threefold ways. So what is attachment you're getting rid of? Craving, lingering, and indulging. And further, Vijayji also said you renounce your ego. So ego also, all of this, the fruit, ellame you get rid of it. So what you get into is action goes on, and because action is going on, the fuel gets burnt off. So you actually get lighter and lighter when you're performing karma, action.
So is this then similar to what we talked about neti, the sattvic renunciation?
Yes. See, neti, as I've said, can be said from the perspective of knowledge as well. You dismiss something at the intellectual level and say it is rubbish, it's garbage. I have no value for it. But when we don't have the intellectual wisdom, is there no alternative for us? To which we are trying to make it that yes, you can go through experience, but yet you are actually getting rid of the vasanas and the desires
mentally disengaging. Yeah.
by mentally
Disengaging. with
not
that.
asking.
Yeah.
But the same thing you're doing when you're using knowledge as well. In the knowledge, you are saying no to it where there's no experience. Here there's experience, so-called satisfaction, because you have to experience it. You have no choice. So let's accept it. We do not have the wisdom to deal everything with every vasana. We can't deal with knowledge. We don't have that capacity. Therefore, we have to understand that there will be things we'll have to deal with experience as well. So when we go into experience, how do we march into it? How do we walk into an experience?
Okay.
Okay, Ranji.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Namaskar. Vijayji, you wanted to say, ask something, say something? Yes, please.
Guruji is avoiding or minimizing this mental involvement during action. The key to not feeding the vasanas and again start craving? Doing the action without mentally getting involved. Otherwise, I remember in one of your earlier sessions said experience runs the risk of feeding it. And, it might start again, start a bigger version, or, you will still again go for it because of the lingering.
Yeah.
So is that is the key in while action, is that the real key, the avoiding mental involvement?
Yes, it is very important. In fact, you got to be far more careful when you use experience to get rid of the desires or vasanas, because it's like walking on a slippery surface. You can always slip any moment. So therefore, you got to be extra cautious. So you should know that I have got into the experience with the only objective of getting rid of my vasana. I have not got into the experience for the sake of enjoyment.
In a way, it becomes neti.
It is neti. It is application of neti. A time would come, the desire is so weak, so meek. You say, no, I will have nothing to do with it. Just you'll mentally dismiss it away. So slowly you'll gain the intellectual strength to see the futility in it. You'll see the futility in it.
It would have entered to the first option, realm of first option, though that is done with, and we can take on something else.
Yes, you'll deal with something else. So it's a very healthy, very dynamic way of dealing with your vasanas. It's not unnatural that it's only dealt at the intellectual level. We do not have the strength, so we'll have to respect it. Okay. Ushama is asking, if you experience without attachment, the quotient of passionate working may be diluted. Is it so? No, attachment, as we said, is only your anxiety for it.
Okay.
The attachment is a negative element which actually ruins the action. You attach to the fruit of action. Your attachment to the doer in the performance of the action. So there's an ego. I am the doer. You renounce that. You attach to the outcome of the action, which is a fruit. You renounce that. So even if these two elements, which is the doership and the fruit, renounced, isn't the action purer?
Yes, definitely.
Isn't the action
definitely.
The action becomes divine actually.
Yeah, correct.
So actually, in fact, action becomes more potent.
Okay.
It becomes see whether action either acquires dirt or cleanses dirt.
Okay.
Dirt here in the term of vasanas. So when we use action, whether actions, does it create fresh vasanas or does action get rid of the existing vasanas?
Okay. Okay.
Mala, Sanskrit word for dirt is mala. Mala means vasana. So does actions create fresh vasanas? It's like, when people go into a mall, most of the time people are doing
Window shopping.
Shivaji, what do you do? Window shopping, correct? So what do you end up window shopping? What's the result of window shopping, Shivaji?
Increasing your craving.
Increasing your cravings for vasanas you did not have,
You
or
only feed your vasanas for non-essentials.
for non-essential Rama. Life was better without it. Now unnecessarily acquiring. So
And
actually, you should be afraid of going into a mall. Bayama irukano. Yeah.
And when we are in complete action, we don't look for the results, because then only you can be in action.
Yeah.
And you are in the present moment.
Correct.
You are absolutely in the present moment. There's nothing else
All the time in
matters,
the
not the past, not the future. You are here right now, this moment. You are all in this point. Then
Correct. Absolutely.
yoga
So
happens.
that is yoga. Correct. Very true. So test ஆயிடுத்து sir. நல்லா இருக்கு. Connection நல்லா இருக்கு.
Okay.
Right. Padminima, are you following? Yes, Badriji. Badriji wants to say something. Yeah. Padminima.
I'm trying to understand. It's not that.
Trying to understand. Where are you lost?
How to practice it. In spite of listening. So much
Could you speak a
about-
little louder, ma?
Yeah.
Practicing Neti is not that easy. That is what I feel. Even though you know that you should not crave for things, you should not linger on your thoughts. It comes. So keep on telling repeatedly. So this is not what you want. This is not what you have to do. At some point of time, I think we'll rise above all this.
In fact, you're right. See, could you mute yourself, please? Yeah. See, as you would understand, we brought about our downfall thought by thought. As I just said, when we have gone into a mall, we just do unnecessarily, we acquire so many thoughts. So thought by thought, you have brought your downfall. Exactly the same way, thought by thought, you got to uplift yourself. So every time a thought comes, you will have to say no to it, no to it, no to it, no to it. You know? So there is no other way. It may be an exhausting, strenuous process, but you have to go through it. There's no other way. And the moment you lapse, and that's where again the thoughts start coming back. So every time you slip in, you say no, no, no. That's the awareness we're talking about. It's essential. And soon you'll gain the strength from negating the lower. Because it's of a very highest discipline. And this discipline gives you immense strength. To negate further. So be assured, if you do it, you'll get a lot of strength. Indeed, immaculate strength you get. You'll be able to deal with every possible vasana desire there. Okay, ma? Yes, Badriji.
Yeah, Pranam Guruji. I think this discussion can sometimes lead us into what I feel are dangerous areas. Okay, for instance, it was mentioned that there should not be involvement when you act. I disagree. Okay, so long as you act, you have to be involved. You have to be in the present and do your best. I can give some examples. Like when Sachin Tendulkar started playing cricket, he was not as good as he was towards the middle of his career when he was at his peak. Now, how did that happen? He was involved in it, he actually fed that vasana of wanting to play cricket. He reinforced it. He trained. There was sadhana in that activity, and he became a better cricketer. So what is important is not involvement in that action, but what it does to your ego. So I'll take another example to demonstrate or to highlight this ego point. There was this musician whose concert I attended in Music Academy in Madras. He was introduced as Pandit so-and-so. He got offended. He said, and he was a very great musician, by the way, but he got offended. He said, I should be called Sangeet Martand so-and-so. And because the host did not introduce him as Sangeet Martand so-and-so, he publicly scolded the host. I've also seen MS Subbulakshmi's concerts. And the height of humility, the pursuit of excellence is the same. She would have put in as many hours of training to perfect her music as the other person did to perfect. There was no difference in caliber as a musician. And there was no difference, I would say, in the sadhana, in the involvement. But there was a difference in what that achievement did to the ego in both cases. So I just wanted to point that out.
I agree with you, Badriji. In fact, the concept is in not contradiction to what is being said, but there are certain forces which dissipate and damage the quality of the action. So to that extent, the elements which ruin the sanctity or the purity of an action, the potency of an action, are the elements which has to be kept at check. As you rightly said, the ego.
Yeah.
The ego you develop when you get into the action, you have a chance of developing ego. Keep the ego at check. While you're involved in action, you are result oriented. So your action, your focus might shift to the outcome or the rewards or the fruits of the action. Keep a thought on the rewards while the action is going on. So involvement, in the sense, as you said, involvement is essential. I said you have to give 100% to the action. If that's what you mean involvement, indeed. In fact, you would appreciate the whole concept of interpretation of neti is being interpreted here as action.
Right.
It is not abandoning action. In fact, it is embracing action. So isn't that the same thing as getting involved in action?
No, there was a statement made some time back, not by you, that you should not get involved. I'm questioning that. In fact, when you perform an action, there is a certain fruit that you have to focus on. The fruit is the quality of that action. Now, if the fruit is rewards that you personally get, then it is a drag on your spirituality. But if the fruit is the quality, for instance, if you're cooking, if the expectation as you cook is that I must do the best job that I can while I do it, or when I sing, I must do the best job I can, then that expectation of fruit is perfect, because it improves the quality of. There's no point performing an action if there's no quality to that action. But the problem arises if the fruit that you expect is some kind of personal reward, because then that can drag you down spiritually. That's what I just wanted to clarify. I mean,
no,
it's nothing different from what you're saying. It's just
correct.
Yeah.
It's just you're pitching it differently, but you're actually saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So you're right. So it's the accent is putting it actively or passively, but we are saying the same thing actually.
Yeah.
But it's come out beautiful because you put it differently. Okay. Right. All right. So good. So We'll move on.